10 moves. That's all it took. 10 decisions, spread across a single decade, that took the biggest band on the planet and put it in the ground. And almost every one of them came from the man holding the bass. You know the records, you know every note of them, you could hum the whole of side 3 without thinking about it. Tonight you get the part they left off the sleeve. Number 10. July 6, 1977, Olympic Stadium, Montreal. Last night of the tour. And the single ugliest 30 seconds in this band's history is about to happen. Waters had been miserable for months, complaining on stage about spotlight operators, about fireworks in the crowd, about everything. He spent much of that final performance staring at one young man in the front rows. Near the end of Dogs, it breaks. Waters leans out over the front of the stage and spits in the fan's face.
Don't be surprised when I crack it.
And here's the detail that turns my stomach every time. By multiple accounts, the kid didn't come to him. Waters called him over first, beckoned him closer, then did it. Now, think about who that was. A teenager who'd saved up for a ticket, who'd probably worn that album out, standing at the front, screaming, doing the only thing fans know how to do. What do you even do with that as a fan? How do you square the man who wrote "Wish You Were Here" with the man who did that? And the band knew. During the encore, Gilmour walked off, disgusted, and Waters refused to play the old songs, leading the others through a shapeless blues jam instead as the show fell apart. Guitarist Snowy White, watching from the side of the stage, described the whole night as strange, with a bad atmosphere. Waters has said himself that success had crushed the intimacy they used to have with an audience, that by 1977 they were playing football stadiums, and that in Montreal his frustration finally boiled over. So here's the question nobody asks. He recognized it, immediately. He understood in that moment that something was badly wrong with him, and with what the band had become, and then he made the worst possible choice about what to do with that knowledge. Number 9. The Pitch, July 1978. Britannia Row again. Waters walks in with 2 ideas. The first is a 90-minute demo with the working title "Bricks in the Wall," about a damaged rock star who builds a psychological wall between himself and his audience. The second is about one man's dreams in a single night. Marriage, sex, monogamy, family. Pick one, lads. Now stop and really look at what's on the table. He has taken the worst night of his professional life, the night he spat on a kid in Montreal, and turned it into a 4-sided concept album about a man who cuts himself off from everyone who loves him. They chose it. The other idea became his first solo album 6 years later. I know. I didn't quite believe it either the first time I put that timeline together. Because here's what actually happened in that room. 3 men voted to spend the next 18 months of their lives inside another man's nervous breakdown. They agreed to play the supporting cast in a story about how he couldn't stand being near them. And they didn't just agree once. They agreed to a double album of it. What makes it worse is that it worked. It's a monumental record. 30 million copies. You've heard that opening riff of Another Brick so many times it's basically weather at this point. But you know what nobody tells you? Great art and a healthy band are 2 completely different things, and this is the exact moment where Pink Floyd traded one for the other. They said yes to the album about isolation, and then they went out and built it. Let's look at the numbers. Only 9% of you are actually subscribed. Honestly, that's tough to see. Our team spends days hunting down archives and verifying every single fact just to tell these stories right. If you've made it this far into the video, you're clearly part of the community, so please hit subscribe. It costs nothing and helps us immensely. Now, for those already subscribed, very few of you have made the jump to our membership, and that's a hard pill to swallow because you're the ones who know our value best. If this channel has moved you or inspired you, consider joining. It's the price of one coffee, but it's the literal fuel for this channel. Let's keep this alive together. Back to the story. Number 8, The Money 1978, and Pink Floyd, the band that had just sold tens of millions of records, is functionally broke. Their money had been handed to an investment firm called Norton Warburg. Somewhere between 1.3 and 3.3 million pounds of it poured into high-risk venture capital to cut their tax bill. The businesses failed, the strategy collapsed, and the band was suddenly staring down tax rates that could reach 83% on money they no longer had. Waters put it plainly afterward. "83% was an enormous amount of money then, and they simply didn't have it." Here's the part that makes it personal. Andrew Warburg wasn't a stranger they found in a directory. He was Waters' friend. He was godfather to Waters' children. And if you've ever handed something important to someone because you trusted them personally, not because you checked, but because you knew them, you already know how that particular wound sits. It's not the money. It's that you were the one who vouched. They were advised the only way to avoid bankruptcy was to leave the country. So they scattered. Waters to Switzerland, Mason to France, Gilmore and Wright to the Greek islands. And now watch what this does to the balance of power. The band urgently needs a record, fast, made outside Britain, guaranteed to sell. And exactly one person in Pink Floyd is holding a finished, demoed, ready-to-go double album. I'd argue this is the single most decisive moment in the whole story. More than the firing, more than the lawsuit. Because from here forward, nobody can say no to him. Not because he won an argument, because the alternative is losing everything. Number 7, The Referee 1979, the south of France, and Pink Floyd hires a man to stand between them. Bob Ezrin came in as co-producer to help shape 26 tracks, and, in practice, to smooth over the tension between four men who could no longer talk to each other directly. Sit with that. This is a band 11 albums in. Grown men who'd known each other since college. And the working solution is, bring in an outsider to manage the atmosphere. Ezrin has described what he walked into. That this was the period where Waters was declaring what he saw as his primacy in the band. That the story was based on his own life, and that he felt deeply proprietary about all of it. Proprietary. About a band. And here's what Ezrin saw happening to Rick Wright specifically. He told Rolling Stone that Wright became a victim of Waters' cruelty, that nothing Wright did was ever good enough, and that it was clear to him Waters had no interest in seeing Wright succeed. That's not a personality clash. That's a target. Now, I want to be fair here, because this story gets flattened too often. Waters was carrying real weight. The concept was his. The financial panic was largely his fault, and he knew it.
Would you like to see me try?
He was writing about his own dead father and his own collapsing marriage in front of three men he'd stopped confiding in. Pressure doesn't excuse cruelty, but it explains the temperature. Still, here's the line I keep coming back to. You can bring in a producer to referee a band. You cannot bring in a producer to make people want to be in a band. And by the summer of '79, one of the four had already stopped wanting it. They were about to make that official. Number 6, The Ultimatum Summer, 1979. Rick Wright is on holiday in Greece. The record is running late. Ezrin phones from Los Angeles demanding everyone come back for mixing. Wright refuses to cut his holiday short. And that's it. That's the whole crime. Waters issues an ultimatum. Wright resigns before the album is finished. Or Waters withholds the entire record from release. He was prepared to scrap it. Think about what's actually being threatened there. Not, you're fired. Nobody gets paid. The tax bill lands. We all go under. Wright wasn't being pushed out of a band. He was being told he was the reason 4 families might lose everything. Wright's own account of it is devastating in how simple it is. He said Waters had come to believe he was Pink Floyd, that the others weren't necessary, and that Waters told him flatly he didn't want Rick in the band anymore, that if Wright didn't leave, Waters would take the wall and do it himself. A founding member. "1965. The man whose keyboards are the reason Us and Them sounds like it's floating. He agreed to go. And now the part that's so absurd it circles all the way back around. Wright came back for the 1980 and 81 shows as a salaried session musician on a flat fee. And because he was on a fee, he wasn't exposed to the catastrophic cost of that stage production, which made him the only member of Pink Floyd who actually made money on the tour. The man they threw out was the only one who came out ahead, and most fans in those arenas had no idea he wasn't in the band anymore. He was right there. Same spot, same sound, a ghost, doing his own job, for wages. Number 5, The Wall They Actually Built, 1980. The most ambitious rock show ever staged, and it plays almost nowhere.
Tell me something eluding you, sunshine.
The Wall was performed 31 times, 4 cities, 7 shows in Los Angeles, 5 in Uniondale, 8 in Dortmund, 11 in London. That's it. That's the entire run for the biggest album on earth. Gilmour and Mason pushed to expand it, take it to stadiums, make it pay. Waters refused. The whole point of the piece was the distance between an artist and an audience. Scaling it up would have broken the argument. So the record that saved them financially became a show that couldn't. And then it gets stranger. Waters brought in a surrogate band, Snowy White, Andy Bown, Willie Wilson, and Peter Wood, to play parts of the show wearing life masks made to look like the actual members of Pink Floyd from a distance. Read that again. He hired 4 men to wear the band's faces, because he genuinely believed the audience wouldn't notice or care who was up there. And every night, a wall 31 feet high and 160 feet wide went up across the stage, brick by cardboard brick, until the band was completely hidden from the people who'd paid to see them. This is the thing that still stops me cold. He wasn't being metaphorical. He built it. He funded it. He hauled it across 2 continents. He stood behind it and sang, and if you've ever watched somebody you love act out the exact thing they're most afraid of, like naming it out loud will save them from it, you know it doesn't work that way. Naming it isn't the same as beating it. The wall came down at the end of every show. It never came down in the band. Number 4. The album that said the quiet part on the cover. 1983, The Final Cut. And the sleeve just tells you. Subtitled, A Requiem for the Post-War Dream, by Roger Waters. Performed by Pink Floyd. Performed by, like a session date. It's the only Pink Floyd album where every single composition is credited to Waters alone. It's the only one with no Rick Wright on it at all. And Gilmour sings lead on exactly one of the 12 tracks. 1. David Gilmour. That voice. On a Pink Floyd album. Once. Mason's own summary of the sessions was that the rest of them just sort of drifted into it. Drifted. Into their own record. Here's the second turn, and it's the coldest thing in this whole story. After months of arguing, Gilmour gave up his producer credit on the album, but kept the producer's royalties. He said afterward that his ideas about production simply weren't how Waters saw it, and in 2002 he described the whole experience as thoroughly unpleasant, and said he didn't think the results were worth much. So think about what that credit line actually is. It's a man removing his name from a Pink Floyd record while still cashing the check. That's not spite. That's somebody who's stopped believing the name means anything. Waters himself later admitted the album was misery to make, that you can hear the tension running all the way through it. And honestly, I'll say this, and I know it'll split the comments. The final cut is a better record than its reputation. Some of the writing on it is the strongest of his life. It's also the sound of a band being dismantled while the tape rolls. They never toured it. They never played a single song from it live as Pink Floyd. Number 3, he tried to kill the name. December 1985. Waters quits. That by itself is fine. Bands end. People leave. Nobody would be angry about a man walking away from something that was clearly killing him. That isn't what happened. He invoked the leaving member clause in his contracts with EMI and CBS and announced that the group was a spent force creatively. He was certain the band had died with him. Gilmour and Mason disagreed. So in October 1986, Waters went to the High Court to have Pink Floyd formally dissolved, legally declared over. Not, I'm leaving. Not, don't use my songs. This thing should cease to exist. Waters described later what the lawyers told him. He went in saying the band was broke and that this wasn't Pink Floyd anymore, and they explained that it was irrelevant because the name is a label with commercial value, and you don't get to declare it dead. That's the moment the law says something the man couldn't hear from his own bandmates. It was never only yours. And I want to be careful here because it's easy to make him a cartoon. He wasn't wrong that he'd carried the writing for a decade. He genuinely believed the name would be used to sell something hollow. That belief was sincere. But sincerity isn't the same as being right about what belongs to you. 20 years of 4 people's lives. 65 to 85. Every rehearsal room, every failed session, every night in a van before any of it worked. You can be the author of something and still not be the owner of it. Whether that makes him a villain or just a man who couldn't let go, I'll leave that with you, because I go back and forth on it myself. Number 2, The Pig with Testicles, 1987. And this is where 2 of the most serious men in rock music get spectacularly, gloriously petty. Waters threatened legal action against Gilmour and Mason, and against any promoter who advertised a show as Pink Floyd, so nobody would underwrite the tour. No bank, no promoter, nobody. Which is why Gilmour and Mason funded it themselves, and why Nick Mason put up his Ferrari 250 GTO as collateral so the band could borrow the money. I know, Pink Floyd's comeback tour was financed by a drummer betting his car. He'd bought it in the 70s with royalties from Dark Side of the Moon. So in a very literal sense, Dark Side paid for the tour twice. Then the pig. Waters had retained rights to the animal's pig in the negotiations. So when Gilmour's Pink Floyd wanted one on tour, they added testicles to it, to make it legally distinct, and to avoid paying Waters $800 a night. $800 between multimillionaires, solved with anatomy. And then the results came in. A momentary lapse of reason went to number 3 on both sides of the Atlantic, and the tour grossed around $135 million, the highest grossing tour of the 1980s. Meanwhile, Waters' Radio KAOS tour, running at the same time, sold well below expectations, partly because it was going head-to-head with Pink Floyd. The man who said the band was creatively dead watched it become the biggest live act on the planet without him. Then, on the 23rd of December 1987, 2 days before Christmas, the 3 of them met on Gilmour's converted houseboat on the Thames and signed the settlement. Gilmour and Mason kept the name. Waters relinquished it, and kept the wall and the pig. That's how it ended. Not a fight. A signature, on a boat, at Christmas. Number 1, 24 years, and 3 Hyde Park, July 2nd, 2005. Roger Waters walks on stage with David Gilmour, Nick Mason, and Rick Wright for the first time in 24 years. Their last show together had been Earl's Court, June 1981. They played 4 songs: Breathe, Money, Wish You Were Here, Comfortably Numb, 24 years, 25 minutes. And you can see it on them. 4 men in their 60s, standing closer together than they'd stood in 2 decades. playing a song about a friend who isn't there, while two of the people in that photograph are quietly running out of time. At the end of it, the four of them hugged. Now here's the ending nobody wants. Syd Barrett died the following July. Rick Wright died on the 15th of September 2008. Live 8 was the last time the four of them ever stood on a stage together. 3 years. That's the entire window. 24 years of silence and 3 years to fix it, and they used about 25 minutes of it. Waters has since said plainly about suing his own band that he was wrong. Of course he was wrong. He said it in an interview, without hedging. He was right to say it. He was also about 20 years late. And if you've ever gotten the apology after the person you needed to hear it with was already gone, you know that it doesn't land the way it should. It arrives, and there's nowhere to put it. So, did Roger Waters destroy Pink Floyd? No. That's the twist. The band survived him. The catalog survived him. The songs got bigger every single year he was gone. What he destroyed was the four of them. The specific thing that only existed when those particular people were in a room together, arguing, and it was still worth arguing about. That doesn't come back. Not with a settlement. Not with a hug in Hyde Park.